Hey everybody, hi. It's David Elliot. I'm speaking today from my office in New Hampshire on a very cold day in February. It's the same place where I wrote At the Polls. So coldness seems to be appropriate, right? I want to thank the Children's Book Committee from the bottom of my heart for selecting At the Polls as the recipient of the Claudia Lewis Award for Excellence in Poetry for Young Readers. I cannot tell you how happy I am about that and how much it means to me. And I know I shouldn't do this, but that's never stopped me in the past. So why start now? I especially want to thank Marianne Wolpert for representing the book so beautifully and so eloquently to the committee. It just felt so good to read those comments and know that somebody really understood what I'm trying to do in that book and in the previous books as well. So Marianne, thank you so much. We don't know each other, but I wish we were neighbors. Maybe sometime we'll have a chance to meet. I hope so. You know, I was not only happy, but very surprised to get that lovely letter from Cynthia. Cynthia, thank you. Because At the Polls is the 8th in this series of Candlewick poetry books. The first 3, On the Farm, In the Wild, and In the Sea, were illustrated by the late and fabulous Holly Mead. Holly, we miss you wherever you are, and we want you to know you left a big hole when you left this vale of tears. Gone but not forgotten. Those books were then followed by newcomer at the time, Becca Statlander, who illustrated On the Wing. Next comes Matthew Truman with Dinosaurs in the Past. Then Rob Dunleavy, who did such an incredible job with In the Woods. Then Amy Schimler Safford with her luminous, beautiful work for At the Pond. And that brings us then to At the Polls. And you know, there are 2 more of those books coming, by the way, In the Desert or In the Sands. We're still arguing about the title. I hope I win. And that's illustrated by a young British illustrator named Gordie Wright. And he did such an astounding job of confounding our expectations of what a desert might look like. And that is followed by, and the last book in the series will be At the Edge. And those are those animals that live at the edge of our imaginations, the axolotl, for example, and the pangolin, and many others. And we don't have an illustrator for that book yet. So I will have published something like 150 poems, more than, about the animal world. So I now consider myself a junior know-it-all zoologist. But I want to say something about Ellen Rooney's work in At the Polls. You know, each of those books presented its own challenges, and At the Polls was especially hard, I felt, because the poles are so cold. It's very hard to feel warm and fuzzy about a 2-ton walrus, for example. And Ellen brought so much. I tried to bring some warmth to the book through the humor, but Ellen brought so much warmth to the book through her work. So, Ellen, thank you so much. These artists, I mean, come on, they're incredible. Well, you know, I was so pleased that you chose the book for many reasons, but one of them was because it is written in rhymed and metered verse. And, you know, these days, I cannot help but feel that some of the snobbery of the adult poetry world has seeped down into the children's world. People kind of, you know, rhymed and metered verse or formal verse, to me that's like a verse wearing a tuxedo, is kind of out of fashion these days. People tend to turn their noses up at it and kind of look the other way. I do not understand that. I still am looking for a contemporary poet who can bring me as much pleasure as Richard Wilbur did, or the kind of pleasure, I should say, that Richard Wilbur has done. Or, hello, Shakespeare. No one turns their nose up at that. You know, what I wanted to say is that many people I think that writers find those rules that you have to follow when you're writing rhymed and metered verse kind of constricting. But I have found them to be just the opposite. I found them to be liberating, because when I'm working in a form, it helps to get me out of the picture. And that's no small thing when we have an ego like mine. You know, I think it's the writer's job to get out of there and let the poem be what it wants to be. And I find that writing in rhymed and metered verse, it really allows the poem to tell me what it wants to be. I hope that makes sense to you. You know, these books are about animals, yes. And I hope that our young readers open themselves. I hope the books help to open them to the animal world in the same way that they have done me. We often talk about how books change readers, but we seldom talk about how they change writers. And those books really have changed my relationship with the animals with whom we share the planet. And I hope they do the same for our young readers. But they're, as much as they are about animals, they're also very much about language. They're about the buoyancy, the playfulness, the profundity, and the endless potential that English has to bring meaning, to bring pleasure, to entertain us, to astound us. And I hope that some of that comes through for our younger readers, because it is a treasure, our language. And you know, loving and getting to know the language and continuing to getting to know it is a source of deep, deep pleasure. So thank you for recognizing what I'm trying to do with the language in At the Poles and the other books. But I want to thank you for one other thing before I sign off. And that is for the important work you do. You know, let's face it, we live in hard times, and many of you are at the forefront. You're in the forefront of the battle. And I just want you to know how much I and every other writer and illustrator I know appreciate you. So we want to encourage you and let you know that you are seen, and let you know that you are not alone in this fight against darkness. And listen, we're going to win. We have to believe that the light will always win. Unfortunately, you guys are the ones holding the torches right now, but you're not alone. So thank you. Keep up the good fight. And thank you once again for choosing At the Poles. I hope someday we'll have a chance to meet. Bye now.